Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to my channel. And in this video, we are going to go over some of the cosplays and sewing activities that I planned on showing you guys throughout the rest of this year on into next year. I do have 3 cosplays planned, and I believe 1 or 2 sewing activities or dresses that I want to make and show you guys the process of me making it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first things we're gonna get into are the 3 cosplays that I plan on making for a convention that I'm going to in February, KatsuCon. I've been going to KatsuCon since forever. I like that con. It's my favorite con. And considering that I don't go anywhere outside of Maryland or DC for conventions, that's probably like the only con that I ever go to, that and Otakon. But anyways, the first 3 cosplays that I plan on making are Anastasia. There's 2 versions of Anastasia. One is from the Broadway version, the red dress that she wears. The second one is the blue opera dress that she wears in the original movie. And the third cosplay that I'm making is Princess Tiana, but I'm making a version that I saw from ColourPop, that makeup brand. I don't wear the makeup, but I did like the design, so I was like, why not make my own version of that, which isn't far from what the original design is, but I am going to add in my own style. My style of cosplay, for cosplay for me, when I started out, I always thought that it had to be exactly what the character portrays. So, for instance, Anastasia, I always thought that if I'm going to make that opera dress, or if I'm going to make the dress that she wears in Once Upon a December, I always thought that it had to look exactly like it, even for the hair, the shoes, everything. But as I progressed into cosplay, I realized that that's not the case, and that's not always the case, especially for people who don't, either have enough money for a cosplay or don't really see themselves in that specific attire. They want to make it their own. And so what I have done to kind of make it my own is I like to add in small African motifs or large African motifs, as I'll show you later, with using African fabrics, or I will use anything from beading to rhinestones to kind of create an African like design within my cosplay, so that I make it mine, and I feel way better about showing off my cosplays because it has a little bit of me in it. But let's get into each cosplay. So the first one we're going to get into is Anastasia, the Broadway one, which is something that I've always wanted to do. I've just never figured out a way to execute her correctly. But now that I have, I am so excited to actually get started with her. I have a portfolio, which I started back in college. I say back in college like it was years ago. It was literally just last year that I started this. You probably won't be able to see it here, but this is the second drawing that I have of her. And then I'll post it somewhere over here. And this is basically the first drawing. It's kind of like a rough draft of what I was going to do of her, and you can also see the other ones that I have drawn, but my initial sketches are kind of like the 50,000 thoughts and ideas that I have for these cosplays that I just have to write down or of course draw before I come up with it, so I don't buy unnecessary materials and things of that nature. And I can actually execute it as well as I want to. But anyways, for Anastasia, I am going to post the dress the original dress somewhere around here. For Anastasia, I do want to do a revamp. I believe the original dress, or the thought of the original, which is the Broadway dress, was supposed to have notes and inspiration of Russian fashion, as well as Russian costuming of that time, as well as modern times, or the time period of Anastasia. But I said I don't want that. And so I decided to go another route, or another alternative, and put, of course, African inspired or African fabric in my design. The one thing that I am excited for is working with this taffeta that I bought. Side note, mostly or all my fabric is bought from Fabric Wholesale Direct, which, not sponsored, but they are amazing. They have very inexpensive fabric, and it's very high quality, especially for someone like me who doesn't get paid to cosplay, but likes cosplay, and I kind of want to do more cosplay, but I don't want to break the bank while cosplaying. Fabric Wholesale Direct is a wonderful website to get fabric from. And they have a variety of different fabrics that are perfect to use for a cosplay, for regular clothes, for anything that you can think of. If you want to get into sewing, I would say check them out. I believe they're based in New York, but they're great. Anyways, back to what I was doing. Anastasia, the main fabric that I am going to be using is a stretch taffeta, which is, I believe, a ruby red. It's better that I just show you. Anyways, this is the fabric that I'm going to be using, and I'll do a close-up of it later. This is the fabric we're going to be using. I love using taffeta or any fabric with texture, especially when I don't plan on using that much rhinestone or that much detailing on the on my fabric, because it allows my cosplays to have a voice or a distinction of their own, that it just makes it look way better, even when it is a simple red fabric or a simple any kind of fabric. Anything like taffeta that has lines or a very distinct texture, I love using for dresses that won't have that much detail, whether it be sparkles, rhinestones, pearls, or anything like that. And that is definitely why I chose this one. I feel as though that she's going to go well for Anastasia. I believe in the original design they used satin, but I was like, that is not going to work for me, because if you've seen any of my previous cosplays, I like for my cosplays to stand out. Not because it is something that I made, but that's just what I prefer. I like for my things to just be out there. Just when I go to conventions or when I go to anything, I want my cosplays to just kind of stand on its own. If I were to just put it on a mannequin, people would be drawn to it just because of the costume and the fabric alone. The second fabric that I'm going to be using for Anastasia is the African fabric, which I am going to be replacing. The original part of the skirt was it's kind of like a it reminds me kind of of peacock feathers. I can't really tell you what kind of fabric it is because it's kind of hard for me to see it, especially in pictures, but it kind of looks like peacock feathers going down the dress, and I'm assuming it's supposed to be kind of like an A-line type dress for the inside of it. But for that fabric, I am going to be using an African cotton, which has notes of blue in it that I want to try and kind of get rid of by doing a little bit of fabric manipulation. I am going to do a close-up of this one as well. But I do want to use the blue as kind of like an outline to sew, which I always say to myself that I need to kind of tone down the amount of hand sewing that I do, no matter what that hand sewing is, but I never listen to myself, so there it goes. But anyways, I want to use the blues kind of as an outline to create a texture pattern on the skirt, to kind of give it a little bit more of a of course texture, but be more in depth with the fabric, and also I feel as though blue wouldn't really go with the overall dress, because the dress is supposed to be red and gold. It's kind of, I feel as though it would be kind of off to have just blue there, but we'll see what happens as we progress. But let's get on to the next one. So the next cosplay that I'll be making is going to be the opera dress from Anastasia. I will be doing, of course, my own style with it, and I will be doing a close-up. I don't know why I'm showing you guys this, because I'm going to do a close-up of it anyways. But this is the one that I'm going to be doing for her. And I kind of based this one off of the bridesmaids dresses that you would see in many Nigerian wedding videos. I like the way that style is, and I did want to try it out, so I thought it would be best to try it out with Anastasia, since I was planning to do her anyways. Now for this one, I won't be using any African fabrics, but I will be painting on African, kind of like an African print onto the cape of the dress. I haven't really decided how I'm going to do that yet, but I do know that at the bottom of the dress I am going to be using rhinestones and kind of doing an outline of Paris, since that was, you know, her goal, and I believe she was wearing that dress when she was in Paris. So I was like, well, what better way to make an Anastasia dress than give her, you know, some form of Paris within that dress. But that is what I'm going to be doing for her. The fabric that I am going to be using is going to be the same fabric that I use for Anastasia, except it's going to be in a blue. I think it's either a navy or a royal blue that I'm going to be using. Again, because I'm not going to be putting any rhinestones on that dress, I will be putting it on the cape, but I will be putting it on the dress. I like to use that textured fabric so it can really give more to the dress, and help the dress stand out. But yes, I am also excited for that. Not as much as I am for the red dress of Anastasia, but I am excited for that one too. But let's get on to Miss Tiana. So the last cosplay that I'll be doing for this year on to next is going to be ColourPop Tiana, which she is right here. You probably can't see it that well, but anyways, this is what she is. And I'm excited to do this because for this Tiana, I am going to make her a transformation dress. And for those who don't know what a transformation dress is, it's basically like a 2-in-1 dress, where the top dress is one, or the top layer is one thing, you rip it off, and then you have another dress or another outfit under it. I had done a transformation dress. I believe I did one transformation dress a couple years back, so I'm glad that I get to come back to it, because I've always wanted to do another transformation dress. I just didn't know what I wanted to do or who I wanted to do, so I just decided, okay, well, what better person to do it than for Tiana, since I'm in my Tiana kick right now. This year I did do a Tiana dress. I'll post that around here, which I did get an award for when I was at KatsuCon 2023. That fabric that you'll see somewhere, I will be using again for this Tiana. I guess because I just wanted a continuation to that fabric, and that, I guess, line or whatever. I feel as though that just fits Tiana, and that fits me when it comes to Tiana. When it comes to Tiana and using African fabrics with my cosplays. But as far as the 2-in-1 dress will go, I will, of course, have the ColourPop version as my second layer, and then I'm going to have her cafe or her work clothes as the first layer. Of course, when I get more into it, I'll be able to explain it more. But anyways, for the cafe or her work clothes, I do want to use, I believe it's called an eyelet lace on top of cotton, because of the texture, of course, and I feel as though that is just a nice, it kind of makes her clothes look a little bit better, a little bit more inviting. Now, I do understand that they are work clothes, and more than likely, if it was a real thing, especially during that time period, they'd probably be dirty, or like covered in like powdered sugar. But for this, and I guess just for me, I do want to make it a little bit more inviting, and I do want to make it a little bit more fun and flowy. So that's why I chose to use eyelet lace over cotton, because one, eyelet lace is very soft. It has a very soft look to it. And especially when you put it over cotton, the texture really pops. I didn't want to do satin. I feel as though satin is a little bit too fancy for the fact that they are work clothes. So cotton is where I decided to go. Also, cotton's cheap, so there's that. But anyways, I am going to do that as the first layer, and then once we get in more into the making Tiana's dress, I can definitely show you guys the fabric and the execution that I'm planning on doing for the rest of it, which I feel as though it's going to be pretty simple, but I always say that and it ends up not being pretty simple. Side note, when I did the ball gown for for Tiana, I thought it was also going to be simple, but I ended up not finishing it. I never finished it. Like, I could wear it. It was wearable, but it was the designs, and I put like a crap ton of rhinestones on it that I never end up finishing before the con, because it was a lot of rhinestones and the parts that I wanted it to be at. And two, when I finished it, I believe I gained weight, or I had kind of miscalculated my measurements, so it ended up not fitting, and I had to like pin it on. And at that point, I was like, who cares, just as long as it's on. But we're gonna make sure that, especially for this con and for these cosplays, it works and everything is okay. But yeah. That is going to be the execution that I have for all three of my cosplays. So now we're just going to get into the sewing exercises, or the sewing activities that I plan on doing alongside these cosplays. Yeah. So I do have one, and it's not two, it's one dress that I drew that I really want to make. It is based off of kind of like a 90s fashion. It's either 90s or early 2000s. I can't remember which one. I have to go back and look. But anyways, it's based off of those type of fashions, especially when it was popular to have like a butterfly or some type of motif on like the back of a dress or the front of the dress, that kind of covered the bodice, or like covered the bodice. It either covered the bodice or it kind of like gave an outline of the bodice of the dress. But anyways, this is the dress that I do plan on making, which again, I am going to give a close up to. It's this one right here. And rather than putting it, the motif in the front, I am going to put it in the back because I can't remember who wore the dress or what dress it was. But it was, of course, a low-cut dress, and the back of the dress had kind of like a crisscross along the bottom side of the dress. And I thought, well, what if we added kind of like a butterfly at the bottom of it, and those kind of like crisscrosses along the back of the dress can be the antenna of it, which I think is a good idea, and I do want to do it. My original thought is to do kind of like a red sequin and then attach a sequin butterfly onto it, but we'll see what happens. I don't like working with sequin fabrics just because they're very messy and they're very hard to sew, but we will see what happens because I always say that I don't like working with something, or I refuse to work with that thing, and I end up working with it anyways. So we will see what happens in the long run. But those are all the sewing things that I plan on doing for this year into next, and I'm pretty excited to show you guys what I am going to be doing and take you along for the ride. And hopefully you can follow me and we can do some sewing together. I am definitely excited to show you guys the transformation videos because I just feel so that one, doing research on transformation videos and seeing how people make transformation videos, to me, we don't have that much information. One, and the information that we do have, it's very vague. So hopefully I can help you guys, or help anyone who's looking to get into doing transformation dresses. I can give them a little bit more insight as to how I do it, and maybe you guys can follow along and make your own. Because I've been cosplaying for a while, I do have a couple of goals that I want to fulfill within my, of course, starting my YouTube, as well as going into next year. I do have 2 cosplay goals that I want to do, or I guess convention goals. One, I kind of want to guest at a con, or at least be a judge for a cosplay competition next year. I don't know the aspects of that, and I'm still trying to figure out how to actually put myself out there so that I can, tell other conventions that, hey, let me be a guest at your con. I'd be awesome. I'm still trying to figure out the whole aspects and logistics of that. But I do want to get into trying to be a guest at a con. Another thing that I want to also do is I want to host more panels, as well as go to more conventions. I feel as though the only conventions that I go to are Otakon and Katsucon. So I want to try and go to more conventions, as well as host more panels. I have hosted panels in the past, especially before the pandemic. I've done a lot. I've done some from K-pop dancing dance parties to Lolita panels to cosplay panels, but I kind of want to do more cosplay panels as well as more travel panels for conventions. Now, not necessarily, it's not going to be, oh, let's go to Europe and do a panel for that, because most of the conventions that I go to are anime-based panels, so not many people are going to want to go to somebody talking about going to Europe when everybody wants to go to Japan. But anyways, I want to get into more panels, and I can also do a YouTube video on how to do panels and what is the process for that, because I have done them, and if you want to get into them, I can definitely tell you guys how to do that. But yeah, those are kind of like my goals for conventions next year, as well as just for cosplay, because I just want to get myself out there, and I want to get my work out there, because I feel as though that more unique work should go out, especially for cosplay. I feel as though that we should definitely get out of that cut and dry, cut and paste. It has to be this way for a cosplay, or it's nothing at all. Because not a lot of people want to do that, or not a lot of people can do that. And I want to make sure, or I want to make other people feel as though that, yeah, you could definitely add this, or you could definitely do this, or you could definitely take away from this to make this. And that's okay. And being a Black cosplayer, I kind of am out there anyways, because I am a Black cosplayer, and we do get our fair share of negativity and our fair share of you can't do this or you have to be this in order to cosplay. And that's not the case. That's definitely not the case at all. And I just want to share that with other people. Before I, not before, but while I'm here in cosplay right now and sharing my experience. For my next YouTube video, I am going to be getting into Anastasia, basically starting her, sewing her, sewing the bodice. I am going to start with the bodice first. I always start with the bodice first and then I go from there. It's just easier for me. But that won't be until September. That won't be until September, since we are ending our month of August. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna start with her, as well as another video on the opera version of Anastasia. And then my third YouTube video for that month of September will be packing for Japan, since I believe by the time I post that video it will be like a week or a couple of days before I go, which I am still nervous for. But anyways, my first YouTube video for the month of September is definitely going to be starting off in Anastasia, since I don't want to wait any longer, because if I wait longer it's just going to be way more stressful to get her started late within the year. But anyways, I will see you guys later, and stay hydrated because it is hot as hell out there. Bye.